Hello, my name is Naomi Colas, and I am with the Department of Education Service Desk. Today, we're going to go ahead and talk about non-public systems reporting. Let me get the PowerPoint pulled up here, and we'll get going. So this NDE Service Desk supports all things data submitted to the state, and if you ever need or have any questions for us, please email us at nde.servicedesk@nebraska.gov. We'll dig in here. This presentation is going to talk through data reporting specific to non-public schools. We're going to walk through what our bulletin is, how to subscribe for it. We're going to talk about the portal where all data is submitted. We're going to address collections or applications within the portal. We're going to talk about due dates, and we're going to discuss some resources. This presentation is available in PDF format in the same place you found the recording, and all of the hyperlinks within this presentation are clickable through that. So first, we're going to talk about the NDE Bulletin. This is a place where the data team sends announcements about a variety of topics, typically portal and data related. Here's the link to the bulletin site. Any announcement we make goes on this website for a specific period of time. Announcements could include things about data collections, various programs at the Department of Education, and various processes. So you can view them online, and or in addition, you can subscribe to them. So you'll want to select the category non-public, and then you'll get notifications specific to non-public schools. Subscribers will receive notifications based on the settings that they have put into their subscription. So you could get these notifications right away. That is literally as soon as it's posted. You could have all of them if there's more than one in a day, summarized into a daily digest, or you could take all of them from the week and subscribe for a weekly digest. The cautionary tale to this one is that you only get the notifications on Thursdays. So if an announcement goes out on Friday, you won't get that until the following Thursday. So the service desk always recommends selecting right away or daily digest. If your email address does change, you will need to resubscribe with your new email address. And there's additional instructions in our non-public systems reporting guidance, which is linked through this presentation. So let's talk about the portal. And this is the online system where the Department of Education collects student, staff, and school data from non-public schools. This is a screenshot of the home page, and this is a web link to it. We recommend everybody bookmark this as a favorite. Every person at the non-public school will need to register for their own portal account. Portal accounts belong to individuals and not schools. So it's really important that each person who's going to be responsible for some component of data reporting have their own portal account. And you don't want to share your login ID or password information with any others. Once you're logged into the portal, you'll see various tabs at the top. One that we request everybody kind of keep up to date is the My Profile tab, and that's the information specific to you, the portal user. If your email changes, this is where you would want to log in and change your email. You can also change your password at any time within this tab here. We have one at each non-public school. We have a portal district administrator, and typically that's going to be the principal or the head teacher at the school. Sometimes it's the superintendent. And this person is going to manage the access for all of the collections or applications for everyone within the school. So one person is going to hand out activation codes, we call them, to assign access to specific data collections to each person. And then if someone at the school does leave, the district administrator is also responsible for removing that access from portal accounts to make sure that people don't have access to something that's no longer relevant to their role. And I mentioned activation codes. Activation codes are how the portal district administrator hands out that access. Now, NDE, the service desk, we do not assign activation codes or access. This information is managed by the portal district administrator because they know who's responsible for what at their district. In the portal, there's a help tab, And in that help tab are some instructions specific for the district administrator. This talks about how to manage your staff, how to remove folks, and then also how to locate these activation codes. We are going to get a new portal, which is really exciting for all of us because the existing one's been around for many years. It's probably going to be in December of 2024, and it's going to have so many exciting new features. It's going to have much easier user management. We're going to get rid of these activation codes. It'll be single sign-on for any of you who are part of the Nebraska Cloud or the ESUCC system. And it's going to have a much more modernized look and feel and be more savvy for end users to utilize it. So look for information on the new portal in the bulletin. So just another hint and reminder to subscribe to those bulletin announcements. All right, so another one of the tabs, and this is kind of how we've organized this presentation, is called Student and Staff NSSRS tab. And within that tab are some collections that non-public schools utilize: Advisor Person ID, NDE Staff ID, Staff Reporting, and NSSRS Validation. So we're going to kind of talk about each of these specific collections right now. So Advisor Person ID utilizes a one-time activation code. That means you'll get your code from your district administrator, add it to your portal account, and then you'll have it no matter what school year it is. And this collection, you can find and update student ID numbers, or you can create them if you have a brand new kiddo at your school. It's important that every non-public school update this information every year for each of your students. That way it ensures that the direct cert match system can identify that student with your school. And it also assists school staff in identifying students that are transferring between schools or potentially shared. And it's really important that if something changes in the middle of the year, that you log into the collection and make sure and update that information in the middle of the school year. But minimally, we definitely want non-public schools to update this information for each of their students every year. And that's typically the best time to do that is in the fall. So to update students' information, there's two methods you can do that. You can upload a file, which is basically, I think a lot of the student information systems have a file download that's compatible with the system. And then you can take this information and upload it straight into the system. Otherwise, there is a template located on the Advisor Person ID website, which is linked here. And that template, you can fill in the blanks and put all your information in there. Otherwise, if you're a small school, it might be better to just manually enter the students. This is also a good methodology if you have a kiddo that starts at your school district in the middle of the school year. The next collection that's in that Student and Staff NSSRS tab is called NDE Staff ID. And this is another one where you just need one code from your district administrator and you can add the collection to your portal account and it'll be there. So in this collection is where you create and locate NDE staff IDs for your school staff. This is an important collection to go to if you need to change someone's last name. Potentially someone got married and their last name changed. Or you're creating a brand new ID because you have a para at your school and you want to report them in a collection called Staff Reporting and you need a staff ID for them. We do ask that when you create any new NDE staff ID that you utilize the Social Security number of that staff person so that if they ever become certified and apply for a cert, the TEACH system looks for that Social Security information and then associates the two records together. When there's no Social Security number, it sometimes creates a duplicate staff ID. And then you've got one person with two IDs, and then that can create some challenges down the road for both that person and for the school. So if you do find a duplicate staff ID, please just email the service desk and we'll help get that taken care of. If you do want some instructions on this particular collection, there's a link right here on this page. So I mentioned staff reporting, and this is a collection where annually all the non-public schools are reporting the staff that work at their school. This is different than the first two collections we've talked about in that this one you have to have a new activation code every year because every year it's a brand new collection. So pretty much every one of your staff are going to be reportable that are certified. That includes substitutes. And we collect a bunch of data points. Two in particular is what this collection, how it focuses on how it collects that data. One is related to demographics. So this could be the person's name, their salary, their staff ID, their email address. And the second is related to their position assignment. So where are they working? What role are they in? When did they start working this school year? And the purpose for collecting this data, there's a bunch of them. I put a couple in here, certifications, so that folks can renew their certificates, and also accreditation purposes. And for those schools who are approved or accredited, staff reporting is a requirement under those rules. So here's a link for the staff reporting manual if you have questions on that. We're going to dig into a little bit more information about staff reporting than the other collections we've talked about, because this is a really important one and it can be kind of confusing for folks. So staff reporting as a collection is open all school year. It typically opens on or around August 1st. And then come September 15th, there's a statutory due date for all non-public systems. The collection never closes, it stays open after that time, but we utilize the information from that to start pulling some reports and information. We have another due date in fall where we pull data after October 31st. One of the data points is email addresses for our directory list that we show to the public. But then where there's the final due date, which is in June. So as you can see, the collection's open all year long, but we have various due dates based on some data collections. And for non-public specifically, in mid-December, we pull information from the staff reporting collection to prep the non-public curriculum report. And this is a report where you're actually connecting your teachers to which courses they're teaching. So it's important that you have all your teachers in staff reporting by the time in mid-December when we pull that list. I mean, it's important that you have it ready at the beginning of the year too, but sometimes there's changes midway through the year. So we're going to walk through the various steps of reporting staff data. So step one is to just enter and update the information in staff reporting at the beginning of the school year. There's a couple ways to do that. You can do it through file uploads, or you can update individual staff one by one. The way we set up the collection to start the school year is we'll import data from the previous school year, and then there's a couple data points missing. So you'll have to touch each staff person and say, okay, well, yes, here's their email address, and confirm some data points. And then, oh yes, the start date this school year is August 1st, and you have to enter that information. So every single staff person at the beginning of the year will have to be touched in the staff reporting collection. So if you choose to do that with a file upload, this is a good method for larger schools that have a lot of staff. And it can be kind of complicated, which is why we recommend that the larger schools use it. So there's a couple different methodologies. Some student information systems have another downloadable file that you can utilize. But if you don't have that, you can go into the collection and download last year's information, 2 separate files. Then you can go in and make updates to those files. Then you take the information and you go re-upload it into staff reporting. So I think there's a couple caveats. Your files have to be formatted and named appropriately. And once you re-upload that demographics file, a lot of the other information that was kind of pre-uploaded from our end is going to disappear. So you want to make sure you have the files downloaded and or updated to the way you like it before you actually start that upload process. There are detailed instructions for this in the staff reporting manual if you need it. So once you've entered all the information in the staff reporting collection, it's going to be important. Oh, sorry. Let me go through the second method of how you can update your staff reporting data. And that's to enter the information for these staff folks one by one. So this is good for a smaller school who doesn't have that many staff, because you're going to go in and update data points on each person. This is also the methodology of which you'd want to use if you have someone leaving midway through the year. Let's say you want to add a completion date saying they left on December 1st of this school year. And then say you have a new person starting that second semester and their start date would be January 1st. So you'd want to add them to your collection. Sorry, I missed that. Okay, once you have that done, then within the collection, there could be errors that exist based on the data you've told us about. And so you have to go into the enter edit section, which is that one by one, and you'll see staff who are in error in red, and everyone starts in red at the beginning of the school year because there's data points missing. And once everyone's green, you should be good to go. Now there is an errors only button in that section. that you can click on, and it'll show you all the staff that have an error, which can be helpful if you've already done half of your staff and not the other half. It's just another way to filter and view the staff listed. All right, so step 2, once you've got all the data in staff reporting, is to actually go add a second collection to your portal account. And this collection is called NSSRS validation. This is a one-time add, so you'll get the activation code related to the role staff data steward from your district administrator, and then you're going to add that collection to your account. There are some overnight processes that run, so you don't want to do this until the day after you've completed all your staff reporting data. Once you add the collection to your account, then you can go inside, and we'll walk through this, but there are some errors and reports that you can look at. What that overnight process is doing is taking the data from staff reporting, and it's comparing it to some different systems like Teach, which is the certification one, and then non-public curriculum once that data is reported, so that it can start to evaluate and analyze and validate the data that you've sent in from staff reporting. So when you open NSSRS validation, you'll be able to review your errors, and you'll see it right on the homepage if you have any. You'll see this purple review errors. There's 2 ways to look at your errors. You can go through this link or here. And then once you open that up, it'll show you which errors, and you click the number to see who's in error. Most errors can be fixed by actually going back to your staff reporting collection and updating the data within it. So sometimes you'll look at your errors and you're like, oh gosh, I reported that person at the wrong school building. So you'll go back to staff reporting, make the update, and then you want to come back into NSSRS validation. Well, you're going to have to manually reprocess those errors in order to see if what you fixed remove the error, because if you don't reprocess them, it's going to take that overnight process. So you could wait and look the next day, but sometimes you just want to make sure you did it right the first time. So to do that, you'll be in NSSRS validation. You can hover over this errors, and there's a reprocess errors button, and then you'll reprocess the staff templates. And that basically takes the information from staff reporting, takes the information from these other systems, and kind of reprocesses it to make sure everything's good to go. That said, there are some reports and errors that do require that overnight process. So if it doesn't quite go away, you can check the next day and see if it's gone. The final step in your whole staff reporting process is going to be to check your verification reports within the NSSRS validation collection. And what's great about these reports is you can see everybody at your school who's certified. You can see everyone that you've reported at your school on the personnel report. And then once you start reporting curriculum data, you can start to see the teachers that you have that are assigned out of their endorsed area. And then all that information is looked at from the accreditation team. Each of these reports has an email that you can contact if you have questions about it. So for the certification report, you can contact the educator certification team. For the teachers assigned out of endorsed area level, you can contact the accreditation team. I think this can be really helpful too if you're a new person, let's say in 24, 25, you're new leadership at the school, and you weren't around in 23, 24, and you're like, I just want to see what was reported in 23, 24. You can go to this current personnel report and pull it for prior years, which can be really helpful when you're completing staff reporting for this school year if you weren't at the school last year. So something to keep in mind. So that's it for the student and staff tab and the collections that non-public systems will complete in it. Now we're going to talk about the data collections tab and the collections within it that non-publics may or may not be required to complete. Some of these are optional, some of them are required. So we've got a lot listed here. We'll talk through the majority of these on an individual basis. But let's go ahead and get started here. So the first one is called Consolidated Data Collections, or the CDC as we refer to it. And this is basically, it sounds silly, but a collection of collections. So instead of just adding one activation code to your account and getting one collection, you're going to add an activation code to your account and get a bunch of collections. And so this can be helpful for those who are reporting multiple data sets. So within the CDC, it does require on every collection a 2-step approval process. So one person will submit the data, and either the same person will approve it, or they'll send it along to their portal district administrator who has to approve the data in the collection. And there's various due dates. It's going to be important to look at the calendar on the CDC website for those. I will say there's only one collection in the fall that non-publics really need to focus on, and that's the non-public membership report. And then in the spring, there's a bunch more. I'm going to caveat this because remember I said we're getting that new portal? Well, in the springtime, we may not have the CDC anymore. And each of these collections listed here aren't going to be a part of the CDC anymore. They're going to be their standalone collections in the new portal. So it's just kind of important to kind of know the history of where they were and now where they're going to be. So I don't see anyone needing to complete these in the CDC again. If you've done it in the past, it's going to move to standalone collections. All right, a second collection in the data collections tab is called district contact information. And this is a one-time activation code collection. And this collects the primary school safety and social media monitor for your school. And if you've submitted it in the past, it's just important every August to go in and make sure it's the correct person and the correct email address. And you can update that collection and make changes to it anytime throughout the school year. But it is really important that every August at the beginning of the school year, you go in and make sure that it's going to be the same person so that we have that contact information. All right, other collections are called the assurance statements. And for non-publics, you're going to have one of two to add. You're either going to add the Rule 10 assurances statement or you're going to add the Rule 14 assurances statement, depending on whether you're an accredited or an approved school. And these are one-time activation codes, so once you add it, you're good to go. But I think it's important to know, okay, which one do I need to add? Because you don't need to add both. Your school system is either accredited, so you're going to add Rule 10, or you're approved, so you're going to add Rule 14. This is an annual collection, and it's typically collected, the data is in September. And this collection is a place for your school to reflect compliance or possibly indicate areas of non-compliance at the beginning of the school year. And that's related to your rule that you follow, whether you're accredited or approved. So another collection in the data collections tab is called Teacher Vacancy Survey. And this is a new collection every year that you have to add to your portal account. And this collects teacher vacancy information. So we use this to determine where there's some teacher shortages, to provide just some additional research regarding where we're having those shortages and what kind of initiatives we can help with to resolve some of those. And this is only open in the month of October, so it's coming soon. We also have the Counselor and Library Media Specialist Not Endorsed collection, and this is a new activation code every year. And this collection identifies any counselors or library media specialists at your school who aren't properly endorsed. So if you don't have any counselors or library media specialists who aren't endorsed, you're not going to complete this collection. This is only for the schools who have someone who's working in that role and who is actively working towards completion of getting that endorsement, because this collection is looking to capture from you, where are they in their potential of getting that endorsement added to their certification. This collection typically opens in the fall and it is open all year long. So if you have any questions about what and who and how and why you're submitting, you can contact the accreditation team. Otherwise, we have a link here to Rule 10 that breaks out the specific information. All right, not until January, February will you add the non-public curriculum reporting system to your portal account. This does require a new activation code every year, and I've talked about it, but this is the collection where we associate teachers with the courses that they're teaching and the number of students. This is used to determine compliance with Rule 10 and 14. The accreditation team uses it to evaluate instructional units and also the percentage of teachers in endorsed areas. So this is a really helpful one for the accreditation team in evaluating all that. We do have a link here for our course codes and clearing endorsements. This way you know which course codes to associate based on what the teacher is teaching. All right, so that's it for the collections. There's a lot of them in the portal that you'll add or either need to add every year or you'll potentially add once and be done. But I think what's important to also know is due dates. So there's various phrasing, and I'll get into that here. But I think it's important to know that when we do ask for a due date, that means that the data is due on that date so that we can evaluate, look at it, and see if any changes need to be made. So the due date is the date that the data must be received. So if there's a statutory due date, that is a requirement by rule in order for you to have that information into the state. After the due date, we have what's called an audit window on most of our collections. And that's usually a multi-week period, about 2 weeks, where the NDE is looking at the data that you sent to us by that due date. We're evaluating it, and we're going to reach out to you and say, you know, we noticed that this data point looks a little funky. Is that what you meant to report, or maybe you need to change it? And the collection remains open during this period so that you can go in and make those edits and adjustments as needed as you're conversing with NDE staff. So there is going to be an audit window close date. And after that time, the collection is officially closed, and you won't be able to get into it anymore. So it's important to utilize these windows for the appropriate things. So get your data in by the due date and utilize that audit window to make sure everything looks good to go, and ask questions of the program owners at the department to see if anything needs to be adjusted. If for some reason you do miss both of those deadlines, we do have what's called a late request, and you could submit a formal request to submit data late in order to change some of these data points. Not all of them, because sometimes we can't allow any changes, but some of them we do. So if you have questions on, can I do this? Can I not do this? Feel free to email the service desk or any other NDE staff that you're in touch with. But this is the instructions to submit, formally request that that data be submitted late. And this is a collection within that CDC that I talked about earlier. It's called Request to Submit Data Late or Make Data Changes. So many resources throughout this presentation. Here's another link to our bulletin site. This is a link to our help tab within the portal. There's several different documents that can help you. One talks about activation codes, another talks about setting up portal accounts. We've also got web pages for each of these various things. So there's person ID, CDC, we've talked about course codes. We do have, excuse me, a data conference every year, and we have archival information from previous year's data webinars, and there can be some really helpful information in there if you're a new data steward or someone looking for information. We have a page dedicated to non-public systems, and then of course our staff reporting site. So please, I've mentioned it several times, if you ever have any questions, there is no such thing as a silly question. Please email the service desk. That is literally our jobs, is to support you with any questions that you may have about submitting data to the state. Our email address is nde.servicedesk@nebraska.gov. So my name is Naomi Colas. I'm the supervisor of the service desk, and I am very pleased to help you if you ever have any questions for us. So please let us know. And thank you very much for your time today.